All right, everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Live Feed Red Delta Project podcast and Live Feed Q&A, where we take a fundamental approach to health and fitness to give you more power, control, and freedom over your healthy lifestyle. As always, I'm Matt Schifferly, and today we're discussing one of the biggest obstacles that often holds a lot of people back. This is one of those fundamental premises that we need to address. And one of the things that I'm starting to really get more aware of as I'm getting more information to write my next book in my R.D.P series. And because these are very important, a lot of the ways that we address diet and exercise are actually based on a fundamentally flawed premise. And why this is so important is because when we come off of things with a flawed foundation, anything we build on top of that is going to be kind of askew. It's kind of like the foundational surface that the Leaning Tower of Pisa is built off of. It doesn't matter how well you engineer that tower. Half of that tower is built on sand, the other half is built on rocks. So of course, it's starting to tilt. And that's exactly what happens with a lot of diet and exercise advice, is that it's based off of some sort of a premise which sounds great and reasonable, but is understandably or unfortunately very flawed. So it doesn't matter what diet you do. It doesn't matter what your workout is. It doesn't matter what program you're using. As long as we're basing them off of these flawed premises, we're still just going to kind of be lost. And in the previous couple episodes, I've addressed the flawed premise in diet, in the fact that most of the dietary approaches out there are based on restriction, which is understandable because a lot of the health issues that we have out there are because we're eating too much. Bottom line, we're eating way too much, way too many calories, way too many processed foods, lots of sugars and all that sort of thing. So naturally, a lot of diets that say somehow eat less, some sort of imposed restriction, makes a lot of sense at first. However, there are many big flaws with this. The first of which is that they usually take too much attention into one aspect of nutrition, be it calories or carbs or sugar or when you're eating or anything like that, because a truly healthy diet needs attention on everything. You can't just focus on one tiny little area and say, that's what we need all our attention on. Nothing else matters. It's kind of like a coach in a football team saying, like, just stop the run game. Don't worry about the quarterback or the receivers or special teams or defense. None of that really matters. And of course, if you did that as a football coach, the other team would be like, oh, dude, we just got to put our attention in these other areas they're not paying attention to, and we'll get around them. And that's usually what happens with a lot of people when they focus too much into one area, is the other areas can compensate and shortchange and undercut all of your progress. Plus, the approach of restriction is a very limited approach, largely because it's only going to help you as long as you have an overconsumption going on. So if you're eating too many calories, you're eating too much processed foods and sugars, then yeah, cutting back is going to help you, but only to the point where you're not eating too much of those things. Once you're no longer eating too much, cutting back isn't going to help you anymore. And if you have other issues that are challenging you, now you probably have issues from the diet, like cravings and stuff, cutting back further on those things isn't going to help. So ultimately, it's an understandable approach, but it is very flawed. It's very limited, and you need to address more than that. So basically, that was the idea behind believing that in order to have a healthy diet, we need to cut back and restrict ourselves, as opposed to the healthy eating approach here at R.D.P, which is about actually using food for as much benefit and value as possible, getting as much out of the diet as you can. So I digress. The approach we're talking about today is that a lot of our flawed approach to workouts is based on this idea that your success depends on how much work you're going to do. So you go online, it's like, okay, do these many sets, work your muscles these many times, and do this much weight, and this much rest periods, and all these sorts of things. And everybody's kind of hunting and pecking, with different types of programs and different types of advice on how much work you should be doing in order to build muscle, build, fat and lose fat and all these other sorts of things. But I think we should come to terms with the idea that this is largely just a big guessing game. It's like, no, the research says this many sets. And then someone says, no, you crazy, you can't do that many sets. You have to do this many sets and this many sets and reps and work your muscle this many times a week. No, this many times a week. And we're not getting anywhere because ultimately your success is not down to how much work you do. Okay? No matter what number, no matter what program and what type of quantifiable metrics you try to follow, it is a guess. And unfortunately, no matter what number you pick, it's probably going to be wrong or off most of the time, because your ability to get success does not come down to how much work you do. It comes down to how productive can you be in your workouts. Right? Can you create that stimulus that I talk about in my most recent books? Because I don't care how much work you're doing. I don't care how many sets you're doing and stuff. The real thing we've got to be addressing is, can we get the job done? And if you look at other areas in life, this is how we do almost everything in life. Like if you want to drive somewhere, you drive there, you're in your car and you're doing the job and the work of driving until you get to your destination. You don't get in your car and say, I got to drive for 30 minutes, right? 30 minutes. That's how much I'm supposed to be driving right now in order to get to my destination. Well, how do we know? Everybody starts different distances away. Traffic could be different, right? There's a million reasons why 30 minutes isn't going to work. And if we go by a number and we say 30 minutes, that's how much is right. That's how much I'm supposed to drive. What are the chances you're going to get there in exactly 30 minutes, right? You could be driving for 20 minutes and arrive because traffic is light or you're closer or whatever, and you get there and you're like, well, I guess I got to keep driving. Just circle the parking lot, I guess, because I'm supposed to drive for 30 minutes. That's what the rules say. Or you're driving for 30 minutes and you're not even close and you just pull off to the side of the road and you just stop. And people are like, what are you doing? Well, the instructions say drive for 30 minutes, but we're not at a destination. Well, yeah, but this is how much work I'm supposed to do. So that's what the instructions say. Got to follow the instructions, right? And even overall, that assumes you even know where you're going to begin with. You could have no idea where you're going and not follow in the directions and just be going in a completely wrong direction. It's like, but I drove for 30 minutes. How come I'm not there? It's like, but this is exactly what happens when we have our workouts and we force ourselves to say, this is how many times a week I need to work out. This is how many sets I need to do. This is how many reps. This is the number of warm-up sets and all these sorts of things. And I think subconsciously, we understand this is a flawed approach because we get questions here, emails and stuff all the time from people saying, this person says I need to do it this way, but I kind of feel like I need to do more. Or they're saying I need to do this much, but I feel like after doing it for this amount of time or this many sets, I kind of feel like I'm done and I've already done a good workout. Do I really need to do that much and stuff? And that's because we inherently know that no, your ability to get results doesn't boil down to how much work you do. And it even comes into the more macro approach where people ask me, well, how long is it going to take to get to a result? How long will it take me to get my first muscle up? I don't know, somewhere probably between 5 minutes and 5 years is probably a good estimate for that, because you're not going to get a result based on a certain amount of work. You're going to get a result based on how productive you can be. And what we need to do is, instead of following a dogmatic approach of how much work you're supposed to do, is give ourselves the freedom and flexibility to do the amount of work necessary to just get the job done. In that way, we ensure that we do enough, but at the same time, you're not overextending and wasting time in unnecessary volume and exercises and sets and reps. So of course, then the question is, well, how do you know it's enough? And that's why we need to have a good objective approach that I talked about in the last podcast, to have a goal of what you're trying to accomplish in your workout. So it's very simple though. There's only 3 things we're working out for. Number 1 is, of course, to just burn calories, in which case anything works. You don't need a certain amount of work in order to burn calories. In general, the more you do, the more you burn. But at the same time, don't feel like you have to burn calories or do an exercise a certain amount of time in order to work, right? You you're just burning gas, is in other words. So if you go for a little bit of time, you're going to burn a little. If you go for more, you're going to burn more. But it's not like the workout's going to be effective for weight loss because you do enough work for it. Like you work up a sweat. I used to have that old adage of I need to work out for an hour in order for it to be effective, which is complete nonsense. There's just a number I pulled out of thin air, right? There's nothing special about doing an exercise for an hour as far as burning calories go. So for that, just defer to however long you can or are willing to work out. Sometimes I'd go for a bike ride and it'd be 5 hours. Sometimes I'll just, do some quick push-ups and pull-ups here on the rig and it'd just be 10 minutes. Doesn't really matter because I don't really work out for the sake of burning calories, but it's not really about how long do I have to work out. The second is, of course, developing a capability, an ability. Okay, so this is strength, stability, improving a skill, like I want to get better at golf or whatever, right? So when it comes down to practice, we don't want to make work our objective of you have to practice this long and you have to do this much, because ultimately your goal should be, I'm trying to get better at doing the thing. And in which case you want to make sure you are working on the proficiency of how well you can do that thing. And with fatigue, if you start to feel like, all right, I'm starting to just go through the motions, I'm not really performing very well, I'm not improving, I'm not really learning anything, then it's probably about time to wrap it on up, right? But if you keep practicing, you're like, I'm getting good at this, I'm getting better, oh, this is really getting better, I'm really feeling good, then keep going. Don't limit yourself on that sort of thing. And of course, you got to take other considerations into play of just how much time do you have. If you've got 15 minutes to work on your jump shot, well, you're going to have 15 minutes, but that doesn't mean because it's only 15 minutes, it can't be effective. Of course, you can get something out of that 15 minutes. So you basically just, can you do it better? And just work on it as long as you can keep getting better, but you're not going to get better because you do a certain amount of work. That's one of the things that one of the biggest myths in fitness in general is, I'm sure if I just work long enough and hard enough, I'm going to get good at this. I'm going to get the results I want. But there's absolutely no promise in that. It is most certainly possible to work your ass off for hours on end every single day for years and really get nothing out of it. There's that adage of hard work always pays off. No, hard work very often doesn't pay off. It's just like any other type of investment. You can put a lot of money in the stock market or crypto or whatever and lose it overnight. Just because you're investing doesn't mean a guaranteed payoff. And it's the exact same thing with work. Hard work and effort is an investment. It's in no way guaranteed shape or form. So you want to make sure that you're trying to get better at it to get that payoff. And then you're working for improving your work capacity. Okay? So if you're trying to build muscle, that's muscular work capacity. How much can you contract your muscles? Maybe cardiovascular work capacity and stamina endurance. So with this one, there is definitely the idea of you want to do enough work because you're basically trying to push the capacity of the muscles or your stamina or whatever. And there's that correlation of, well, if I do more, I'm pushing it more, right? Sort of, because the other variable with that is intensity. So if you do things more intensely, you're not going to be able to do as much. So it's kind of like the performance side of things as well, is when you're doing pull-ups, you're doing sprints, you're running around a track, whatever that case may be, you want to do it for whatever time. You can go long and easy, you can go hard and short, it really doesn't matter, as long as you're just working that capacity of how much work you can get out of the muscle or your aerobic system or whatever. But once you start noticing that ability to do the thing start to really decrease, you're probably not getting a whole lot more out of it. So I could be doing pull-ups on my bar and being like, oh yeah, I got that set. That was a hard set. I really pushed my muscles to a very high state of fatigue. Get another one. Yeah, all right. That was pretty good and close. But eventually, if you're really pushing yourself, you've got like a set here, a set here, a set here, and then and it just drops off. A big case in point here, maybe if I give you a challenge of like, can you do 100 pull-ups, right? So you got like, I got 10, I got 8, I got 6, I got 5, 6. And eventually just get to this point where you're like, I got 1, I got 2, and it was kind of sloppy. I'm basically just working to get to the finish line, right? Once you realize you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, you're probably not really engaging the work capacity to a higher level. You're just kind of plateaued, as it were, as far as how hard you can work. And at that point, I would say, bag it. You're probably not getting much more done. Of course, if the goal is I got to do 100 pull-ups, then yeah, great. You go until you do 100 pull-ups. Last week, I was doing a mountain bike race. It was 25 miles. And believe me, around mile 20, I was done. Like, I was pretty smoked. My legs were smoked. I was just exhausted. But I didn't stop because I wasn't at the finish line yet. So in that case, when the objective is to do a certain amount of work, like to ride 25 miles, then you keep going until you get there. But in the sake of fitness, you don't base it off of how much work you got to do. All right, how many sets should I do? As many as it takes. If you're doing pull-ups and after 4 sets, you're like, I am really feeling good. I am working my muscles hard and they are really, really feeling like they're working well. Well, why stop? Well, the program says, or this expert says, I only do these many sets and I don't want to overtrain stuff. Who cares? If you can keep going and if you can still be productive in the workout, keep going. But at the same time, you don't want to overextend yourself. If you're like, I got to do 100 pull-ups, and then after 30 pull-ups, you're just getting it done and you're sloppy and you're just half repping single repetitions. Like, why are you going? Like, you're not getting much out of it. You're just extending the need for more recovery, but your muscles are worked. They are cooked, right? Think of like cooking a microwave in a burrito, or a burrito in a microwave. A little Freudian slip there, right? You cook it until it's done. You take it out after a minute, and it's still kind of cold in the middle. Pop it in for another minute. But after a minute, you're like, oh, yeah, that's nice and hot, 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 hot. Okay, you don't put it in for another minute. You're like, when it's done, it's done. So that's the point I'm trying to make, is we don't want to make an objective quantification of the amount of work we're doing our goal. We want to make our goal being productive. How much work do you need to do? And if you can find a way to do it in less work, like in my micro workouts book, all the better, because you don't get results from just busting your ass. You get results by how productive you are. And if you can figure out a way to become much better at golf or jump shots or get stronger or something like that with half the work, that's only going to help you win. You're not going to get extra trophies for busting your ass. You want to make sure that you make the productivity of your workouts your goal, and however much amount of work it takes is the amount of work it takes. Sometimes it's going to be more, sometimes it's going to be less. But if you stay stuck on a dogmatic approach of I need to do this amount of work, chances are you're most of the time going to be doing more work than necessary or not enough in order for you to achieve that objectivity or that objective and getting what you want out of it. So give yourself that freedom and flexibility. So there you go. All right. Thank you very much, folks, for coming on in. Let's get some questions. So I'm on my computer here now, because last time people were saying that I was missing a lot of questions, but let us see what we can address. It's also a lot easier for me to read these things on the big screen. But Alex, first in the gate here. Hey, Matt, I just got my first heavy bag. Sweet. What's a good way to incorporate into grind style calisthenics? Thanks. Very good question. So I love bag work. The hanging bag is my favorite piece of cardio equipment. If I was like cardio equipment, what would you do? Big, heavy bag. I'm assuming like the MMA style, like one of those 7-foot ones. We used to call those Mai Tai bags or banana bags back in the day. I like those because you don't need to adjust the height. You can go, low kicks and high kicks and stuff, and they're nice and heavy. So warm up with it a little bit. You could do some light boxing and some knee strikes and stuff to warm things up. So warming up is good. You set a timer. So if you want to circuit it a little bit and get your heart rate up in between your strength sets, then that can be a good way. So you would do like a set of pull-ups. You're like, yeah, okay, really good hard pull-ups and stuff. Okay, his timer is set 90 seconds or a minute or whatever. Go for it. Or you can work on a specific technique. If you're like, man, my sidekick is just not up to par these days. Okay, so set the timer 30 seconds. Or you could do just like regular set and rep training, like 3 sets of 10 kind of thing. I had a book on, it was called like solo training, I think it was. It was basically like, how do you train yourself as a martial artist? And it was basically saying, take your martial arts techniques and use them exactly as you would strength training. How many sets, how many reps kind of thing. So you would say, okay, I'm going to do 2 sets of 10 on each side. Then you do your pull-ups. So supersetting is a very good thing. Or you could just, of course, just use it as a finisher. And you do your regular grind style workout. Good, everything's feeling nice and worked, and then boom, go all out on the heavy bag for a few minutes as a nice little cardio finisher. One of the best ways, again, to work on your aerobic work capacity. And you can progress it with time. You can progress it with just more kicks, things that are going to require more aerobic stamina as well. So those are some ideas on how you can use that. Very glad for that. It's fantastic workout for sure. James Dune coming in. Hey, any advice for training with a disc bulge? I don't want to lose my gains. Very good question, because yeah, you got to be careful of that. For the most part, you want to keep a very stable spine, and things that are going to put shearing stress on that spine are pretty much out. But it depends on where the bulge is, and it depends on the direction of the bulge too. Is it anterior or posterior? Because the movement of the spine to make the bulge worse, of course, is just out sort of thing. But pretty much neutral is the way to go. Isometric stuff for the torso is probably the best way, things like planks, push-ups, where you're holding like isometric style bridges. Of course, don't do anything that's going to cause pain. Pain is Mother Nature's way of telling us we're screwing up. That's probably what I would do for now. And of course, I assume you're working with someone to fix the issue as well. But basically, spinal movement is not your friend right now. And also, I would stay well away from any exercises that are going to risk that type of movement. So things like the plank, like I'm going to hold it for 10 minutes. How long can I hold it for? Now is not the time to be doing that, because anytime you're doing an exercise and you're like, I'm good, but as soon as I start to lose form, it gets bad, real fast. You want to stay way away from that sort of approach. You want to basically do techniques, durations, intensities that say, even if I start to mess up, I'm still more than okay. So that's probably the way that you want to address that. Awesome questions coming on in here. Paul Bruce, how you doing, Paul? Good to see you as always. Hey, Matt, when designing the chain training theory, did you consider any other classification schemes, additional chains, fewer chains, etc.? How did you come to the current scheme? So chain training, I write about this. This is how I organize all my books. All my training and stuff is we have our 6 chains: push, pull, squat for the movement chains, and then the support chains is flexion, extension, and lateral. And the flexion, extension, lateral, those are the classic anatomical chains, of course, often usually just referred to as the lateral, posterior, and anterior chains. That's usually the way that the body is classically made. And that's also what was done in convict conditioning too, when Paul Waite talks about mobility training and stuff, is the trifecta is working the stretching and working the extension, flexion, and lateral. So that's where it started. But of course, then I realized like the movements of the upper body and the lower body need to be taken into account. And just when you look at exercise from a 30,000 foot view, pretty much everything in a basic compound movement format is push, pull, and squatting movement pattern. So once I started to realize those 6 chains, it's like, yeah, this fits everything, and everything fits in there. There's no need for anything more. There's no need for anything less. It just works, And of course, with every theory I ever come up with, if I ever see examples of, no, there's other examples, there's other things I should add, or these 2 things are really the same thing, I'll just put them together, then yeah, I'll shrink in or expand in it. But I haven't found anything to warrant just that sort of thing. And it's certainly not something that I came up with overnight. It was many years in the process, and eventually you just get to a point where you're like, yeah, I guess this is the way it is. Let's run with this kind of theory. Alpha with the awesome thumbnail and the avatar with the wolf. Been watching a lot of wolf videos online these days, I love wild dogs. Hey, Matt, in second GSC workouts, 20 minutes each in the morning and evening sufficient for muscle stimulation? Quick answer, no freaking clue. I have no idea. Because again, it doesn't matter how much you're doing. Like once a week, twice a week, once a day, twice a day. I don't know. It's not about that. It's really just about, are you challenging the work capacity of your muscles? You could do that and challenge the work capacity of muscles and stimulate hypertrophy. Or you could do exactly that and not stimulate. It depends on, are you pushing the muscles to the point where they're having trouble working and keeping up that level of performance. That's the bottom line. And so again, we don't want to get stuck on a number of, I have to do this twice a day. You can do it once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day, once a week, twice a week. It's really just use the numbers based around what is the easiest for you to stick to. But yeah, that's a good place to start. And a lot of people are like, well, where do I start? I'm like, just start with something, just start with any program, anything that you just line out. You can start with the grind style calisthenics workout programs that I have for free on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, and just start there. But again, modify. If I say do 3 sets and you're like, yeah, but I feel like I'm better off with more, well, then just do more. And that way you're off and running. Paul again, hey again, Matt, any thoughts on what a Red Delta Project certification for personal trainers would look like? I think your philosophical approach is something many trainers could benefit from. Thank you, Paul. It is something that's kind of crossed my mind a little bit. The certification thing was, very, very common in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s. Like every coach and trainer would create certifications off of their methods and stuff. And it was a kind of a lucrative thing that they could do. It brought in people, made them experts. It was a very good thing. But honestly, like it's not something I've given a lot of thought to, largely because I don't know quite what it would entail. And also, I'm not entirely sure how valuable it would be, because certifications, like people are like, I'm certified in this, I'm certified in that. 90% of the people out there don't care whatsoever what your certifications are. 2, it doesn't necessarily credibly certify you to do anything as a coach. Think of like when you got certified to drive a car. When here in the United States, it's 16. I know some places it's 18 and stuff. Like, all right, I got my driver's license. Did you drive your car the way you were really supposed to, though? I mean, I sure as hell didn't. I was racing around parking lots with my friends and stuff. So it's one of those things I'm a little wary about. Not sure if it's something. Sometimes I think of maybe a GSC certification or something like that, just to make sure that there's other people out there who not so much can teach it. It's just something that is a very well-known and understood system, but it's still very much in development. So I don't want to solidify it just yet. Taylor Marshall, how's it going, Taylor? Do you have any tips overcoming shoulder impingement? Should I stop training upper body altogether? Hurts when I raise my hand above my head. Well, yeah, of course, that's your impingement. So yeah, basically don't do things that hurt, but you can do a lot of things that aren't going to hurt. So classic push-ups. I know a lot of people with impingement typically can do some sort of pushing and horizontal. So typically horizontal stuff is good. Horizontal press, horizontal pull. That's probably what you want to do for now. And keep in mind that impingement, you've got that inflammation there in that tendon. And I mean, that stuff just takes forever to heal. And you're not out of the woods once it stops hurting either, because pain is a threshold of damage. You have a threshold, a certain amount of damage, then you cross a certain limit, and then you have pain. So when you no longer have pain, you still have some damage there. So keep that in mind and overkill the recovery. But basically, yeah, stick to things that don't hurt. And I would even go so far, like we were talking about spinal issues earlier, like stay clear of things that even feel risky. Like, it's okay. I'm all right if I warm up and my technique is perfect. I think I'm good. No, not even that. Like, yeah, I could totally do this all day long and with terrible form and I'm still good. That's the stuff you want to be looking for. It's going to limit your exercise selection for a bit, but I don't see that as a bad thing, because oftentimes limiting what we do gives us the opportunity to become much more proficient in those things and learn more about them, and you come away stronger as a result. So you're limited, but take it as an opportunity for growth. Very good questions here. Thank you very much, everybody, coming on. Alan White, 89. Great. Good one. Hey, Matt, what's your view on nucleus overload? Would you say your calf development was due to actively using the muscles all the time? I don't really have much of an observation on it. As far as I'm aware, a lot of the research is kind of like that on nucleus overload. Usually, when something like that comes about, there's always some expert out there like, this is the greatest thing ever, and this is what you need, and this is what's guaranteed to get gains. But by and large, the research I've found has been largely like, I don't know, maybe sort of thing. But you're definitely right. Like the calf development, I mean, yeah, it's because I use my calves for everything. Every exercise is a calf exercise to me. Even flipping pull-ups are calf exercise to me because I got really good mind-muscle connection with my calves really early on in life. And then when I got into bike racing and, of course, Taekwondo, I'm jumping like a bunny rabbit and I'm bouncing around and everything like that. So as a result, I just have a ton of activation in my calves all day, every day. And if there's ever a formula that's going to help you build muscle, it's really high activation in that muscle and use it a whole heck of a lot compared to my shoulders, which have always been extremely low activation, very poor muscle control. And even though you're supposedly working your shoulders a lot with every upper body exercise, I'm not. It's not really that much in the picture, which I'm trying to fix and work on these days for sure. But that's the formula right there, and that's exactly what's gone on. I mean, that bike race I did last week, there was a fantastic downhill finish. Oh, so fun. A lot of banked corners and jumps and stuff like that. So now, of course, mountain bikes, especially the newer ones, they have a drop seat post where you drop the seat post down and you're basically just hanging on and you control the bike with your feet, which of course I'm clipped in. So I'm on the balls of my feet and you're basically jumping on the balls of your feet down this whole thing for like half an hour. I mean, boy, let me tell you, when I got down off that mountain, my lower legs felt like they were lead. I had not felt pain in my calves like that for quite a while. But when you consider like that's what happens every single time I ride a bicycle to some degree, then yeah, it's a wonder my calves aren't bigger than they are. All right, let's see here. More questions. Hey, fantastic. Again, Hey Matt gets my attention to your question sooner. Otherwise, I just think you're talking to yourselves. Jeff Stockdahl. Hey Matt, with the backfilling strategy, do you recommend warm-up sets? Warm sets, and if so, how many would you do? Again, this is the thing of as many as it takes. So yeah, warm-up sets, because the backfilling strategy in grind style calisthenics that I outline in the book, that is for work sets. That's not warm-up sets. So warm-up sets, I always have a very flexible approach when it comes to warm-ups, because sometimes you need more, sometimes you need less. The way we want to approach our warm-ups with things is you've got a state in which you need to be in order to perform whatever you're going to be doing, bike racing, pull-ups or whatever. And then you have the state you're starting off at. Okay. And the closer those two things are, the less warm-up and preparation you need. So if you're going to do a push-up workout, and it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you've been loading boxes at Amazon all day, you're probably pretty close. So maybe just a quick, set of push-ups on the kitchen counter, be like chest, shoulders, triceps, you guys good? Okay, yeah, let's just go. All right. But if you're like, okay, I'm going to do a 5-minute push-up test and I'm just going to push myself as hard as I can with a elephant on my back for a weight vest, right? And you've got to be way over here, but you just barely woke up and it's 2 a.m. and you're way over here. It's going to take more warm-up for you to get to that state where you can throw down. So in that case, you'll probably need more warm-up sets. You'll probably need a little bit more, maybe some shoulder mobility work and stuff. So the whole point of a warm-up is to get you in the state you need to be in to perform at your best. Sometimes that's just going to take more. Sometimes it's going to take less. And again, we don't want to be forcing you to a number, because I said 3 sets. After 1 set, you're like, I kind of feel like I'm ready to go. Well, then you're now wasting energy you could be spending in the meat and potatoes of it. But if I say, okay, 2 sets is definitely enough, and after 2 sets, you're like, I'm really not feeling too confident in that shoulder just yet. Give me just 1 more. No, 2 sets is what you need, kind of thing. So give yourself more if you need more, less if you need less. But do what you need for sure. Karen, there we go. Karen, hey Matt, been doing home workout, basic calisthenics skills since year one. Very good. Don't forget, I also have my secondary podcast, the Fit at Home podcast that I do with my friend Al Painter over at Do You Integrate. So just shameless plug there for all you home workout aficionados there. The Fit at Home podcast is also a good resource for you. But anyway, seen a lot of improvement. Fantastic. Good for you. But I think I have hit plateau, improving my endurance, but not doing much on my size. Any tips? So Yeah, so we're working on the work capacity of your muscles. Okay, so we've got time and intensity. So usually when we're hit a plateau, it's because we're just not in one or the other. So if all you're doing is reps, 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 sets, rep, endurance, and the intensity with which you're working your muscles is constant, so it's the same technique, same weight, same whatever, eventually this hits its limit and this is holding you back. So think of like if I had a rubber band between these two hands, right? And that band, it just, I can't get this higher and this is holding it back, right? So I can't go anywhere. So now what you want to do is you want to use harder techniques, harder exercises, get away vest, use harder exercises so that this comes up, and that's going to take that slack off that band. And then this can go up and you basically, and this is how it's like climbing up a ladder, right? You got two hands, you can grab a rung, you're like, great. But if this one stays here, you can't go higher. You got to go up by this and then up by that and up by this. And you climb up the ladder that way. But if your whole approach to exercise is all volume, or how much can I do, or how much can I lift, you can't get anywhere because this other one is holding you back. So that's what you want to be looking for. And also just, make sure you've got all the other areas taken care of. You get plenty of sleep, you're eating plenty of food. If we're trying to build muscle, got to eat plenty. I tell people to eat plenty no matter what their goals are. That's what a good healthy diet's about. Get plenty of food, have a good healthy appetite. Oh, here's a classic one I get quite often. Hey, Matt, how do I implement a skull? I'm assuming you mean skill training into grind style calisthenics. Skull training's real easy. You just kind of, it's just there. But no, skill training. So one of the things about GSC that I purposely did was try to keep it as low skill as possible. Because one of the things that I noticed that people got frustrated with when it came to building muscle and strength with calisthenics, because that's what GSC is all about, is that their proficiency in using their muscles and their skill work was holding them back. Because we're trying to work the capacity of the muscles. We're just trying to say, come on, work it, more work. Come on, muscle, keep working, work harder. But when we're depending on exercises that require a lot of skill and proficiency and stability and all that stuff, you're going to reach the limit of that skill before you reach the limit of the work capacity of the muscle. So you're effectively working skills, not necessarily hypertrophy and strength, which doesn't mean you can't build muscle with skills. Of course, you can challenge your work capacity with a lot of skill work, but it's typically kind of the long way to go about it and not the most direct, with which DSC, it was always designed to be the most direct approach to building muscle and strength with calisthenics. So it's not supposed to be skill, that's the point. With that said, you can use any sort of skills that you like as the strength phase of your workout, because typically strength is a skill and skill is a strength, as my mentor, Zach Evanish, would always say. So muscle ups, levers, planches, that takes a lot of strength, takes a lot of skill. So that could be typically just at the strength phase. You can superset it in your strength phase because the strength phase isn't supposed to wear you out too much. That's part of the reason for it is you want to stay relatively fresh so you can work on the skill of strength. So you can do a basic strength exercise like pull-ups or something, weighted pull-ups, and then do like levers and stuff. But you want to do it before the hypertrophy phase because that's just going to burn you out. When you're burned out, you can't do jack as far as skills go. But if you do have a skill that you can just push the muscles to a higher work capacity, you can also do that as a hypertrophy thing. So if you're just working on handstands, for example, and just burning out the arms and the shoulders, and you have something you can lean your toes against, you can do that. But typically use it as your strength phase. Very, very, very good. Yeah, men's skill training. Yeah, very good. Awesome. Very good. Let's see. Zarate Karate congratulating me on 107,000 subscribes on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much. And shameless plug, everybody, please like, share, subscribe, all that kind of good things. As a YouTuber, I want to spread the word. But, the numbers like that were always secondary for me as far as what I'm doing. I just want to help as many people as I possibly can. And if you guys get help from this and you see value in these sorts of things, if you share it, that helps more people. It's good karma for you. All right, Oliver DT. Hey, Matt, do you think calisthenics barbell dumbbell training is equally effective for strengthening your bones? Oh, this is so good because I just learned something about this the other day. So here's the thing I used to think about bone training, like, because we subject the bones to stress, osteoblasts, they get involved and everything, and bones strengthen up. Strength training is good at preventing osteopenia and all that sort of thing. So I used to think that it was the mechanical loading of weight against the body that was the primary driver for that. So you needed a barbell on your back. You needed weight on your hands. You needed weight in order to make that happen. But a tidbit that I learned from Stronger by Science, which I highly recommend you folks check out their podcast and everything, said that the majority of bone strengthening stress doesn't come from loading the body directly. It comes from the stress between the contact points of your muscle. So, my bicep connects roughly here and up on the shoulder. So when I contract like so, there's stress going through my humerus due to the compression that my muscle is creating between those contact points, which means, sure, if I put weight in my hand and the barbell on my back, that's loading that sort of thing up, but it's not necessary. As long as you're doing some sort of strength training, preferably fairly hard strength training, low repetition stuff, it's still going to be conditioning your muscles roughly the same way. Because again, a contracting muscle is a contracting muscle, regardless of what type of exercise or tool that you are using. So in that regard, you're probably fine with anything, but you've got to make sure you're going pretty darn heavy with what you're doing to make sure you get the benefits of it, which we already have covered with the strength phase and grind style calisthenics. So thank you so much for asking that. It's almost like it was a plug for that one, so I could show off that new little tidbit that I found. All right, next up. Hey, Matt, do you have some time to spare? I feel like I don't have any endurance, strength training, mobility, job, learning, all sorts of things. How can I get some time? Oh, isn't that the answer we all want, sort of thing? So a couple of things. One is setting priorities. Is just what's most important to you. Sometimes something's just got to give, right? Some things just got to go. For me personally, like, I've just taken on a new job, working at yet another gym. So I think at this point, this makes like 5 jobs that I have right now. And I know right now it's like, there's no way I can make that really work. So of course, one of them is going to start to decrease and falter back. Nothing to do with R.D.P, of course. That's still onward and upward kind of thing. But yeah, eventually, sometimes you have to just cut back on things. If there's something that you've ever wanted to just kind of quit or put on the back burner, now's the opportunity. We all have just 24 hours in the day, and we all need sleep. We need food and stuff like that. Second is when you have more of a fundamental approach to training, you get more dialed into what's most important. And when you get that, you find that you can accomplish a hell of a lot more in less time. So my book, Micro Workouts, case in point, right? I never set out to write a book called Micro Workouts where you can make a lot happen in a short period of time. What ended up happening over the years of understanding the fundamental approach to fitness and creating a workout stimulus is I was like, well, if all I need to do is challenge the work capacity of my muscles or work that skill, oh, hell, I could do that in 5 minutes. What am I doing an hour for? I always say it's the hammer and nail philosophy. How long does it take you to hammer in a nail? Well, right now, most people, the way we approach it is we got to polish the hammer, and then we got to go online and look up different ways to, what type of hammer. And then we've got to walk around the nail 15 times, and then we hit it with tiny little hits. And then we got to orient. We've got like a 50-step process to hammer in a damn nail. And then I come around, I'm like, boom, boom, boom. Done. Let's go grab a beer, kind of thing. And people are like, how did you do that? It's like, well, when you're focused on getting the job done, you cut out all the fluff. So things like martial arts, right? What do you really need to do to be effectively training for that? I'm a Taekwondoist. So we've got our basic kicks, front kick, side kick, turning kick, front block, middle punch and stuff. I can practice all that in 30 seconds. I don't need a lot. I practice Taekwondo almost every day of the week. And most of the time it's like 5 minutes. Right. And strength training, same thing, 3-minute test. Boom. How many weighted dips can you do? So you can keep things pretty compressed. So cut back where you can, get focused on what's most important, and most importantly is keep things really simple. If like we were saying earlier, where push and pull, like, oh, I can't do all these other exercises, that could be a good thing. What can you do if you only had 4 exercises you could ever do for the rest of your life, right? If you really wanted to make things simple, you can do a lot with a very select number of techniques. I always give the example of my friend Mark, who I knew way back in the day, jacked to the gills, huge amount of muscle, strength like you wouldn't believe. He had 3 exercises. That was his entire workout, and that's all he ever did. Dips, pull-ups, and push-ups. That was it. Of course, from the lower body was a different story, but you can do a lot with much less, because it's really about the quality of what you're doing rather than the volume. Don't seek out the volume sort of thing. Just use what you can, and that usually means you need less than you think. Anyway, hey Matt, what are ways to progressively overload your body weight exercise beginner level for building muscle? Well, I don't know. What's your beginner level? Depends on where you're at. I've had beginners who can do handstand push-ups. I've known beginners who can't do a proper bodyweight squat. There's no such thing as a standard beginner, first and foremost. So that's why I always tell people, just start where you're at. You want to have some sort of knowledge on basic progressive calisthenics theory. And you can do this many ways. There's convict conditioning. There's my book, Smart Bodyweight Training. If you want to get even simpler, there's my grind style calisthenics. Okay, so you want to have just a general understanding of basic progressive calisthenics theory. So you know what the range is. It's like, this is how push-ups are ridiculously stupid easy, all the way to Captain America insanely hard. Okay, and I know how to do push-ups everywhere in between there. And then it's just a matter of, well, what can I do? You start like, I think I could do that. That was a little too easy. Okay, you ramp up. And eventually you get to that point where you're like, oh, those are kind of a little more on the challenging side. Okay, that's where you are. So you train according to your current level of capability. I don't care if you've been training for 2 years or 20 years or whatever, I'm going to train you accordingly. So you get that understanding of progressive theory, and then find where you are and go up from there. Very good. And usually when people ask, like, where should I start, like with my books and stuff, I always say grind style calisthenics, because you need to get that neuromuscular proficiency down first and foremost. That's what I think most people are lacking. Even advanced athletes are lacking that to a large degree. That's the book I wish I had when I was 17, and it would have made a hell of a difference. All right, Froten Inferno, great avatar here. Love the dragon. Hey Matt, can I ask what exactly you mean by tension? Is it just flexing the muscle? Since when I try to flex my abs during leg raise, it makes it very hard to breathe and occasionally causes pain. Well, we don't want that. Pain is Mother's Nature way of telling us something's wrong. So tension is literally electric signals going through our body. So my bicep right now, right, is just relaxed. There's no tension in it. Muscles hold tension, just like a cup will hold water. So muscle right now, it is pretty relaxed. It is empty of tension. And if I tense it, now it is full of tension, right? And if I tense it harder, I'm putting more tension into it. Remember, that tension's coming from my brain. If I have a weight in my hand, that weight isn't telling the bicep to do anything. Okay? It's just creating resistance against gravity. The thing that actually makes tension go into the muscle, and so if I tense my muscle, I tense it harder. The thing making that happen is my brain, because I'm making that happen. And the duration, and like right now I'm saying still turn on, that duration is also my brain. It's saying this much tension, and this is how long. So I'm putting tension in the muscle, just like pouring water into a cup. I'm putting tension into my bicep, and boom, now I've taken it out. Okay? That's what tension is. And again, you could feel it. So it's like, how do I know if there's tension there? You feel it kind of thing. So going to your ab training though, your breathing, that's tension of a different muscle. So our breathing is not necessarily so much controlled by our abs, it's controlled by our diaphragm. And a lot of times our coordination is not very good. A lot of people, they have poor tension control between their diaphragm and their core muscles. So I can tense my abs. My abs right now, I know you can't see it, but my abs are tense, but I'm breathing because my diaphragm is relaxed, my abs are tight. But usually when people tense things up, they tense everything. And my diaphragm is really tight right now, and you can hear it in my voice. I can't really breathe. And I got even a little dizzy there, right? Because I don't have that core control and coordination. So a good way to kind of learn that is to get like into a dead bug position where your forearms and your thighs are against each other. You're on your back and you press, but you still try to breathe. And you may have only very shallow breathing, very shallow type breathing, but just work on that. And it's practice. It's just practice. It's like pat your head and rub your belly kind of thing. It's a coordination drill. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. And then abs will work harder and you'll have easier breathing. And therefore your training will be more effective. Very good. That's a very good question. All right. Let's see if there's some that I missed here. Let's see here. All right. Let's see here. I'm not sure if my exercise order is in the smartest way possible. It goes decline pushups, incline pushups, deficit pushups, pike pushups, tricep extension dips, how to order exercises. Well, right now you're pretty much doing the same thing across the board. So I don't think it's going to matter one way or the other. Because fundamentally you're doing this, you're doing pushing. So you're basically, I know like a lot of times we look at exercises like they're really that different, but it's really not. It's kind of like saying I have a green M&M and a red M&M and a blue M&M. Does it matter what order I eat them in? It's like, not really. Usually you want to, start off with something lighter to warm up. And then maybe if you're doing drop sets, you got to do something lighter. So for example, the decline pushups to incline pushups is kind of like a drop set there for sure, because if you did it the other way, you probably wouldn't get terribly far with that. But I would say, like, why are you doing all those exercises? Like, why are you not getting what you want out of like 2 of them kind of thing? So in order to do all that, you have to decrease how much you're pushing yourself in the first ones. All right, so that's one of the things about volume that we have to consider. Now, the volume's not bad, but generally when I see someone with a bunch of exercises, I think the intensity is not really there for any of it, because you got to pace yourself. It's like, I want to be a really good hard runner, so I'm going to run 10 miles. Like, you're a soccer player though. Yeah, so I want to improve my endurance. Yeah, but you got to sprint on the pitch. So you should be sprinting and doing, sprints for like half an hour or something, or 20 minutes. You're kind of out of alignment there. So that's the bigger thing that comes up, is not the exercise order, but the volume that you have there. For the most part, I don't really think order matters that much. I know a lot of people will be like, this is the order you have to do things in kind of thing, but there's benefits to every kind of order. In my grind style calisthenics program, we typically have heavy compound movements first, and then lighter, high volume stuff second, or single joint stuff second. That's typically a good way to order it, but in a couple of, one of the months for the grind style workout program, I reversed it. And I was like, great, higher volume, single joint stuff first, then the heavier stuff, just to kind of give yourself a little bit of a difference there. So the bottom line I want to give you is try different types of order and see if just one jives with you more. It's like, oh, I did it this way, and I really like how I felt with that, and my performance was really good. Then there you go. Because if you get the order wrong, you'll know it. But if you, most of the time, especially again with that low intensity, in order to get that much volume, I don't think it's really going to matter one way or the other. All right, let's see what else we got here. Hey, Matt, been stuck at 8 strict chin-ups for years now. I know I have the strength to do more, but the elbow tendons flare up. Any advice on how to progress pull-ups? I tried Grease the Groove and adding weight. Yeah, because you're not working your back enough, is the bottom line. You don't have enough activation in your back, and you're not packing your shoulders, your shoulder blades down and back enough, which is why you've got a little bit of internal rotation and your elbows are flaring out just a little. I'm exaggerating, but you're doing pull-ups like this versus this. So your shoulder blades packing down and back, lifting your shoulders. Think of like, do a row, right? Your shoulder blades are back and your elbows are back. This is where you should be at the top of your pull-up. with your shoulders, right? So that's what we want to do, is get your back involved. Elbow tendonitis, this, remember, pain usually in one area of the body means some other area is not working enough. And that for pull-ups especially, that means back of the shoulder, lats, and traps. And that's going to also hold back your repetition range big time, because you don't have this much power to do a lot of pull-ups. There's just no way your biceps are that strong. You're neglecting and not engaging some of the biggest muscles in your body for that movement, which of course you're going to be very limited for that. So focus on the, in GSC, we have the isometrics. Get like a yoga strap or an iso strap or something from WorldFit and focus on that pulling motion where you have it around your feet and you're just pulling and wake up those lats, wake up those upper traps and stuff. And then get those engaged as much as you can for those exercises, and you'll be off to the races. Also, if you have the ability, go with a neutral grip as well. It's usually a lot easier to learn to get that back more engaged with a neutral grip than anything else, at least I've found. So that may help you as well. Let's get some rapid fire ones off here before we finish off. Hey, Matt, how should you breathe during push-ups? For example, I know not dogmatic. I'd say it depends. Exercise usually, but if after the exercise your breathing feels restricted. Yeah, and this again goes down to that Valsalva maneuver, that kind of thing. Breathe evenly. A lot of people say like inhale, on the way down, concentric, you exhale. It's a good way to go about it, but as your speed changes, it may become not attached to your breathing. So I would say make sure you're breathing continuously as much as possible, and just trying to stay away from this kind of thing as much as possible. So as long as you're breathing smoothly, that would be the more objective that you want to go with. Oh, how come that didn't pop up? There we go. Hey, Matt, would it make sense to do 10 sets of 5 pull-ups for strength? I really like doing sets of pull-ups, but I would like to increase the volume to maximize strength gains without getting to fatigue. Absolutely. So yeah, definitely if fatigue is low, you're going to be doing more sets for sure, but don't get stuck on that 10 repetition number. So we're developing the skill of strength. So if at 8 and your strength is starting to really nosedive, we'll stop it at 8. You don't get more benefit or a lot more benefit per the cost of doing more sets if you're really starting to struggle to get 2 or 3 repetitions. So yeah, you could do 10 sets of 5. It's going to take a lot more volume for sure. But if you're starting to find that your skill and ability to contract the muscle that forcefully is really nosediving, cut it off and recover faster and come back stronger another day. But yeah, 5 pull-ups. Make sure you're going heavy. Use progressive technique, weight vest, or pausing at the top and the bottom. Make sure it's hard. You want to go hard. Hey, Matt, I hope you're doing good. I am. Thank you very much. What's your opinion about Bulgarian versions of ring push-ups and dips? I like stuff like that. You got to have really good scapular control and mobility in your shoulders, of course, in order to have that kind of range of motion in your shoulders. But I really like that stuff. I do a lot of that sort of thing myself when I'm really feeling up to it, now that my right shoulder's feeling a lot better. You got to watch the volume on that again too, because it is a bit more of a skillful proficiency for that sort of thing. But I really like it. But the more important thing is, who cares what I think about it? What do you think about it? Do you like it? Well, if you like it, go for it. But if you're like, I don't like it so much, I'm like, well, then don't do it. We got a million reasons to get bigger and stronger here, folks. Why force yourself to do things you don't want to do? Hey, Matt, how do I better engage my lats when training front lever? So my favorite approach is I'll take like my straps up there on the bar or a doorway or something like that and do straight pull downs and packing those shoulders down and back. So I'm pushing down, or even just here, like I'm seated, right? Straight arms, and I drive down with my arms. So I'm effectively like I'm trying to pull my arms down. I'm not using my abs or anything, but I'm using my lats to press. And I'm also kind of squeezing my arms in a little bit. And that really helps to wake up the lats to a very high degree before you do your front lever stuff. Best of luck with that. Front lever's tough, man. But I love it because it's one of the best ways to work your back extremely well. Hey, Matt, how do you track progress, keep everything constant, doing inverted rows and curls, aka Australian rows? I feel like there's too many factors like foot placement, angles. Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Jacob. This is one of the things with calisthenics training. It's good that you're aware of all those things because there are so many variables with calisthenics that can change how things are. So a couple things that you can do is like the height of your hands is a big one. So when I'm using like the handles there and stuff, is adjust them so they're the same relative height on your body. So I'll put the handles at my waist height. Okay, so that way that's taken care of. Width, roughly about the same, shoulder width or so, maybe a little bit narrower is what I prefer. And then, of course, making sure that your straps are vertical, you know, if you're right underneath it. And then for my foot placement, I always keep it one of three areas, either elevated, straight, or bent 90 degrees. And I don't bother with anything like halfway in between or anything. It's elevated, straight, or bent. And if it's elevated, it's always on the same box or something. It's something you can objectively quantify. You want to basically bring some sort of objective quantification to these things. It doesn't matter what it is. Like I said, handles, waist height. Okay, how tall is that? It doesn't matter. It's the same every time. That's what's important. And that way you can have that consistency. It makes it a lot easier to track. Let's see. What? Just a couple more real quick here. Hey, Matt. Oh, I like the kanji there. Ryu 2020. Very nice. What would you integrate sports-specific exercise? In my case, high kicks. Very good. And a 6-day GSC week, push, pull, rest, and so forth. I usually just say, just do it wherever you can, whenever you can. For me, with my Taekwondo training, it's not in the actual workout of strength training. You know, I like to break things up. So it's like I'll do my Taekwondo training in the morning, and then I'll do my grind style calisthenics workout in the afternoon or something like that. I like to break it up throughout the day kind of stuff. So for the high kicks, like I would say, don't worry about mixing it in with your workout. Just take like 5 minutes in the day. I'm like, okay, 5 minutes, high kicks. And I mean, that's a long time to be doing one technique. You know, you set a timer for 5 minutes and you do nothing but high kicks, you're going to get a lot of training in that 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute even, right? So that's the way I would go about it, is just put it in your schedule where you feel like you can, sort of thing. Tip for golfers, elbow issue. Yeah, don't do things that hurt naturally, but also, again, get your back engaged. A lot of these arm and shoulder issues, folks, come from low activation in the back. So things like pressing down into the lats, the rows with the iso strap and stuff like that. The more we get our back engaged, the less stress there is on those joints. But be patient with that stuff. That takes forever to heal. Last couple here, real quick. Are push-ups really that good for chest? I can't do much yet, but I'm working on it. Absolutely. Again, refer to my buddy Mark, who had a chest like out there here. I mean, the guy had pecs that would put Arnold to shame. And his whole thing was push-ups, even close and narrow push-ups like this, and dips. Absolutely fantastic. All right, and last one here. Roman Muster, hey Matt, I've been following since the Fit Rebel days. Holy smokes, that's a long time ago. Thank you very much. I was wondering, is there advice from back then that you find completely wrong today? Oh, yeah, pretty much like everything. You know, you can't get very far in life unless you question what you've previously known. And pretty much everything I know now and talk about with Red Delta Project is completely opposite of what I used to believe. But probably the biggest takeaway that I would have changed back then was that, like I was saying earlier, is that hard work is the important variable versus creating some sort of a stimulus. Because back then I was always so much more about like more is always better when it came to hard work. But at the same time, also having a weird minimalist attitude towards training and fitness of less is more kind of thing. I wish I didn't have that. I wish I had just much more of a targeted approach of like, do enough, have enough. Don't strive for more. Don't strive for less, you know, because less isn't always better. More isn't always better. Know exactly what you're trying to accomplish and then just adjust the amount of whatever you're doing and whatever you're using to best do that and let that be your goal. And that would probably be the biggest change that I would make for sure. So, all right, folks, thank you so much for coming on. This was a fantastic one. We'll do this again next week, roughly around 2:30 or so Mountain Standard Time here on next Saturday. And don't forget to email me, reddeltaproject@gmail.com if you have any requests or topics that you want for future episodes. New videos coming out for Red Delta Project YouTube channel. I've got a new Swami Matt video that I'm working on that I think you guys are going to like. And as always, check out my books and other resources that I recommend down below in the description, because that's how we support this podcast, and it's greatly appreciated. So thank you so much. I'll see you next week. Till then, be fit and live free.